Hello, how are you? I hope you're all in the best of health and spirits. Did you know that we live in a sea of microbes? In fact, not a sea, but an ocean of microbes. These little tiny little creatures which we can't see, but they're very much here, and they've been here years, millions of years before us, and they're going to be here millions of years long after human beings have been extinct. Did you know that we have around 1 billion cells? Each human being has around 1 billion cells. And did you know that we carry around 1 trillion bugs on our bodies? So these trillions of bugs call our body home. So in fact, we're really a universe in ourselves. Do you think these bacteria or these microbes which we harbor are good bacteria, or you think they're dangerous bacteria? So in a society which we're living, we've kind of really started thinking that all bugs are bad. But the reality is that the huge majority of these little microbes are very important to us for our own health, and believe it or not, even for happiness. They protect us from the dangerous bacteria. They provide us with useful nutrients. They help us to strengthen our immunity. And as I said, they also have a big role to play in how happy we are, how stress-free we are, how anxious we are. So the good bacteria keep us happy, keep us relaxed, keep us free of diseases. And now research is coming in and saying that the good bacteria protect us from obesity, and believe it or not, may have a role in protecting us from cancer as well. So our generation, or rather the last 3-4 generations, have been really popping in antibiotics to keep ourselves healthy and protect ourselves from whatever infection we've got. But now the time has come when we start wondering whether popping in antibiotics at any type of infection, is it really a good choice, or should we be very mindful about the type of antibiotics we take and when we take them? Because when we take these antibiotics, which are really miracle drugs, they kill not only the bad bugs, but they also kill our good bugs. And that has a huge role to play on how healthy we're going to be in the future. Today, please allow my colleagues and myself to take you on a journey on the rise and fall of antibiotics and what we can do to protect them, as well as all the wonderful microbes that call us home. This is a Dash to Protect Antibiotics initiative.
Hello friends, let me take you on a journey to the golden era of antibiotics. Now this golden era was kick-started by the discovery of penicillin in the year 1928 by Sir Alexander Fleming. Now before this discovery, staphylococcal infections were usually untreatable, and the mortality was as high as more than 80%. So we had the golden era of antibiotics from the year 1950s to 1970s, when there were many more such discoveries. Antibiotics were being discovered from naturally occurring microorganisms in the soil. Like we had discovery of vancomycin from Streptomyces orientalis, and this was used to treat the penicillin-resistant staphylococcal infections. Until this date, we know that for MRSA infections, vancomycin remains to be the drug of choice. And there were many more such discoveries. Humankind was gradually evolving, but they had kindly forgotten that even bacteria were also evolving. So bacteria evolved in terms of developing resistance. So we need to, really think. So the food for thought today is that, do we actually require the antibiotic? So before we pop a pill, please do think, is it actually required for treatment of normal flu or etc.? And even before prescription of the antibiotic, we must give a pause and think before we prescribe. Thank you.
Now, antibiotics
which was once considered as a magic bullet and undoubtedly changed the field of infectious diseases. It saved millions of lives. But now in the modern era, due to abuse of antibiotics, the antimicrobial resistance has evolved, and it poses a great threat. In fact, it has been ranked as one of the top 10 global public health threat. It has been projected to cause more deaths than all the cancers put together by 2050.
Antibiotic resistance, we know it is becoming a real problem, and even the WHO is concerned about probably the next epidemic could be a multi-drug resistance problem, and this is mainly driven by the overuse and misuse of antibiotics all over the world, but mainly in Asian and African countries, and that is probably the most significant.
In our industry, agriculture and poultry, there is a lot of use of antimicrobials, and that is the reason that we have multi-drug resistance bacteria also in food, in air and in soil. So this is an era that we are having very few new antimicrobials in the pipeline, especially for the gram-negative. And that is the reason that we should save our existing antimicrobials to be used very carefully and judicially. Now we are heading towards an era where there can be a lot of treatment failures and mortality simply because of non-availability of antimicrobials covering the multi-drug resistant bacteria. So this is the week that we are celebrating for antibiotic awareness, and this is also endorsed by WHO to increase the awareness among not only healthcare workers, among the stakeholders, among the policymakers, but also among the community and public to judicially use the antimicrobials, not to use antimicrobials for non-infectious causes, for viral infections, or to treat simply the fever. So this is our slogan for this year for the Antibiotic Awareness Day, that antimicrobials handle with care.
Antibiotic is a veterinary medicine which is used to treat bacteria and prevent disease in animal. And antimicrobial resistance is a global health issue in the world, and the attention of this issue increases, and we have to advise animals and breeder to decrease the use of antibiotics.
Drug resistance was some kind of problem, but we had plenty of antibiotics that were coming every 5 years to 6 years. But since last 20 years, no novel molecule is being discovered, and we know the problem of AMR in a hospital that we are facing today. In many cases, we see that we are getting isolates which are clinically relevant and they don't have any antibiotic to give. So this fundamental approach that all microbes are bad to us and need some treatment, need a serious rethinking.
There are many challenges I face while treating infectious diseases, but the most important ones are the difficulty in actually isolating the organism and the resistant pattern of the organisms that we grow.
The resistance of microbes to antimicrobials poses a formidable threat to global health and sustainable development. So, we want you to know that decreasing the pressure on doctors to prescribe antibiotics, especially in viral upper respiratory tract infections, as they need only symptomatic treatment, this might lead to decreased antimicrobial resistance.
I'm a microbiologist, and the reports which I see daily in the bacteriology laboratory, they are scary. There are ESBLs, there are MBLs, there are MRSAs. So I urge my clinical counterparts to focus on specimen collection, because when we process poorly collected specimen, then we give you reports with high antimicrobial resistance, and I feel somewhere it builds up a pressure on the clinicians to give treatment according to these reports, which actually are false positive. And to my fellow citizens, I request you to not pressurize your consulting doctor for a prescribing antimicrobials for a quick recovery.
Antimicrobial resistance is a social problem that needs to have social solutions. To this end, behavioral science is imperative for us to better understand the relationship that we have with antibiotics and how we can develop contextualized interventions to optimize the use of antibiotics, not only in the prescription of antibiotics, but also how as members of the public and the community, how we demand and how we seek antibiotics from our healthcare professionals. To this end, it's really important for us to understand the socio-cultural drivers of antibiotic use, and social science research has been really impactful in helping us understand the socio-economic, socio-cultural and behavioral drivers that shape our attitude to antibiotics to help us develop solutions that are long-term and that will be beneficial.
And this problem is not limited to just the bacteria and the viruses and the fungi, where it's again becoming a huge cause for concern. It's a problem with the parasites too. Let's hear Dr. Idris talk about malaria.
Hi. As you may know, some malaria parasites, they develop resistance against the normal medication or the non-medication chloroquine. And now the medication against this resistant strain is based on combination of 2 or more drugs. And these are very expensive drugs and possibly also with harmful side effects. So now you have a very important role to play in the control of malaria. Basically based on chemoprophylaxis as well as avoidance of mosquito bites. To reduce mosquito bites, it's important to use impregnated bed nets. Also, it may be good to use covering clothes to cover most of the body, as well as use insect repellent on exposed skin. Wishing you good health and protection against malaria. Thank you.
So if you are on any long-term medication, long-term antivirals, like for treatment of hepatitis B, C or HIV, you should get yourself tested. If you're not responding to it, and your doctor will check you for the development of antiviral resistance, may either change it to a higher dose or change your antivirals, and like this we can contain the spread of this antiviral resistance.
So how can you as an individual contribute in the prevention of antiviral resistance? You should never demand antiviral drugs from your physician or your doctor if it's not absolutely necessary. Once it's prescribed, you shouldn't share it with other people. You should use the correct dose for the correct amount of time, even if the symptoms alleviate. And from my personal experience, get vaccinated. I get the flu shot every year. This helps prevent you from getting severely sick and needing antiviral drugs. Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Microbiologist also gives guidance on the biomarkers to be tested so that it will help in optimizing treatment and also helps in facilitating this stopping of antibiotics too. Microbiologists, for prescription writing, a crucial part is diagnostic stewardship. Unnecessary tests leads to unnecessary antibiotics, prescription of unnecessary antibiotics. Avoidance of unnecessary tests is an important role that a microbiologist does. For correct prescription, you need a correct sample. Now, a microbiologist can aid in getting the correct sample.
A concerted effort through One Health program by the governments, healthcare professionals and the public for rational use of antibiotics is required. Prevention of infection must be done through stringent infection control practices in all healthcare setups, including critical care units. Monitoring of antibiotic use through an antibiotic stewardship program in every hospital is another crucial measure to restrict irrational antibiotic use. Awareness among the public must be made through mass media. So, in this World Antibiotic Awareness Week, let us pledge ourselves to contain the emergence of antibiotic resistance across the globe, thereby saving millions of lives.
It requires combined efforts by the physician, ID specialist, pharmacist, and microbiologist. Microbiologists can do selective reporting of antibiotics, preserving the higher antibiotics so that unnecessarily higher antibiotics are not started. Emphasizing the culture. So it's very important for the nursing staff and technician to collect the specimen aseptically so that they can reduce the contamination. Collect the cultures whenever there is an indication. Obviously, we are saving tigers, but it's high time to save antibiotics for our future generation. Thank you.
If I were to slow down one of the urgent health threats of our time, it would be antibiotic resistance. Antibiotic resistance happens when germs or bacteria no longer respond to drugs designed to kill them. It's a global problem, and once it spreads, it's hard to control. That's why we need to keep track on the resistance that can alert us to new threats and help protect people at risk and guide future prevention and control strategies. So with those stronger molecular tools, we can spot the antibiotic resistant genes and help develop new treatments and also keep resistance from spreading. So rapid detection and rapid response are very critical in the fight against antibiotic resistance. In our center, we utilize the tool of whole genome sequencing in studying the genes that are responsible for spreading antimicrobial resistance and the patterns of that spread and all the factors contributing to the spread of resistance, and in the hope of this tracking of genes by molecular tools will help us better understand the resistance pattern and also utilize those tools for designing better strategies for the future to combat antimicrobial resistance.
Appeal for all of you not to pop in antibiotics unnecessarily. Not only it will cause the resistance, but also it causes harm to your own bodies. Listen to your healthcare professional, and an appeal to my colleagues, just don't give in to the public pressure to write any antibiotic when they demand from you. Go what you have been taught during your medical school and be more rational and help the world fight this evolving issue of antibiotic resistance. Thank you.
The misuse of these antibiotics, which has led to drug-resistant infections, which is a major concern in the current era in the community. Therefore, the world needs a guardian, that is an antibiotic guardian, to safeguard these drugs for future use. So it is the responsibility of each one of us, being citizens of human citizens, or as well as the healthcare professions. So avoid unnecessary consumption of antibiotics and preserve them for using them as and when they are absolutely needed. And progressive elimination of over-the-counter sale of the antibiotics would help us in safeguarding the antibiotics and storing them or preserving them for future use.
On occasion of World Antibiotic Awareness Week, the message that I want to give is that we think of leaving clean air, water and fuel for the next generation, but no one thinks of leaving antibiotics. Don't we wish for them to be taking antibiotics and no one dying of simple infections? So let's preserve antibiotics, let's save antibiotics, let's stop injudicious use of antibiotics. That's the only way we can save them. And for common colds, what you need is rest and not antibiotics. Thank you.
So on the occasion of World Antibiotic Awareness Week from 18th to 24th of November, I would like to convey this message that like fuels, antibiotics are a precious resource, and once wasted, it is very difficult to redeem them, and we have to take care of antibiotic use them very judiciously and rationally, so that we do not revert back to the pre-antibiotic era and be beset with bad bugs and no drugs. This is my message for all of you. Thank you.
So just like we've become mindful about global warming, mindful about pollution, about protecting precious resources, we need to understand that antibiotics are a huge, precious, common resource which impacts us all globally. So we need to be mindful about protecting these very valuable resource. And one way of protecting them is by promoting health and preventing infection in the first place. So having a well-balanced, nutritious diet, exercising, washing our hands are very important steps in protecting us from falling ill in the first place. Having clean water and sanitation is as important. And finally, another step which I feel we should take upon ourselves is to tell our doctors and nurses to please wash their hands before they examine us, because our hands are excellent vectors which transfer bugs from one person to another. So once in the hospital, we should protect ourselves from getting infected by the bad bugs. So today, let's pledge to be guardians of antibiotics, guardians of the trillions of microbiota which call us home, and take care of our health and remain healthy and happy always.